How do we reclaim our creative identity? You may not realize that you have one, but you do. And that's the topic that we're going to address today on Flourish-Meant. I'm your host, Tina Yeager, and today I have a beautiful and talented guest with me. Her name is Lara Bianca Pilcher, and she is a very talented performing artist as an actress. She is an author and a certified creativity coach who spent more than 25 years helping dancers, actors, singers, writers, musicians, and visual artists reclaim this creative identity. And her book, Audacious Artistry, will help us get anchored in that. I'm so excited to have her here today. Welcome, Lara. I'm so glad you're on Flourish-Meant.
Thank you, Tina. I love the name of this podcast, so I'm all in. Let's dive in.
Lara, when someone is trying to figure out how to embrace their creative identity, how do they start with that? Does it start with confidence? Where do they begin? How do they start to figure out who am I and why should I believe in myself as someone created by God to be creative?
Yeah, I start actually with so much inner work because we are in one of the most noisy, saturated times in history. We're dealing with so much coming at us because of social media, because of AI, because I don't know what I've seen in the coaching room, working with artists and creative people one-on-one, is that we often go, I will get my identity through my accomplishments, but it never works. It never will work. And we need to go back to, like I said, wrestling alone with ourselves and with the Lord and saying, first and foremost, who am I? What am I chasing here? Why am I chasing it? And one of the great questions that I ask a client, but it's normally about 8 questions. But to summarize is I'll say things like, what is it about your creative? So if it's filmmaking, what is it about filmmaking that you love? And then they'll tell me, oh, I love storytelling or whatever. And I'll say, okay, when you get to tell stories, what does it give you? And so I start to dig and dig and dig and dig to get the value of what are you actually chasing? And it's usually belonging or identity or maybe peace or maybe joy or maybe friendship. And then you go, hold on, where else can we get that need met so that we're not looking at it just in this place that isn't going to give it to you? Maybe it will for a day, but come on. A day when you're on set, fantastic. But what about the other days? What about the 200 days you weren't on set? Where are you going to get that identity? And so we dig and we look at the value and what you're really chasing underneath and realize you can get that from other places. And when that recognition is there, you can start to get that need met elsewhere or to try to set up things in your life to get that met elsewhere.
At its core, it's an identity issue, right? So how do we understand where we are in our identity as separate from our career successes and failures?
Yeah, that's a really good question because one is human psychology and one is like output. And so we look at not chasing visibility for identity, but first and foremost doing the foundational work, which is ongoing. And I think there's a lie that a lot of artists believe, and I hear it a lot when I go to networking events, even in faith-based spaces, where like, you need to know who you are, you need to do this, and I'm like, but that's an ongoing thing and it's hard. And we cannot earn opportunities by being perfect. God doesn't just drop things in our lap because we're more spiritual, we've got it more together, or for some reason we have aligned our identity more in Him. There is so much more to that equation and that conversation, because what that says is to everybody else who isn't working and you haven't quite aligned yet with God, so therefore you haven't got an opportunity. You've got to be so careful on these platforms what is actually being shared because of the message that you're giving. And that's not how God works at all. When I wanted to get married and have a husband, I felt like I need to be perfect before God will give that to me. But it was the opposite. God refined me through my relationship with my husband and gave me a husband before I was perfect. I wasn't behaving perfectly. I didn't have my life in a row, and it's been the biggest blessing to my life. And He has refined me through that. And so I feel like this conversation matters because we need to get that identity as an ongoing work. And I still do this. And that's why I say it's not like something you just arrive at. It's something that you're constantly wrestling with and realigning with and looking at your values and what you're actually chasing. Hence why I'm in coaching, because a lot of people can't do this. And there's a science to it, but the science is godly too. It's like a God-given design science. And I take people through a process to actually help free them from their own worst, being their own worst enemy, which we quite often are, because our whole quality of life is in our thoughts and the way we think. Everything we're thinking in our head, we end up doing actions on, and that becomes our reality. So for me, realigning the mind with our God-given design is so important. It's foundational and ongoing.
Well, what about those people who have embraced the fact that they're creative? They're pursuing what they feel God has called them to do, and yet it's a struggle. They're not seeing fruit. They're not seeing opportunities. They're in this very dry, it doesn't seem like a season. It seems like a forever that they're in, that there's this ongoing stretch of desert before them and they're never going to get out of it. What about those artists? Whatever art they're in, they're all art experiences lists where they just aren't seeing any open doors, and yet they believe God has called them to this.
Yeah, that's 95% of us. That's me. That's all of us. There's the 5% who get to kind of live from job to job. And isn't that awesome? And that 5% needs to be careful not to tell the 95%. It's because for some reason they've done ABC. Because there is, yes, God has called us, but there's the real thing. We live in the world. We're not of it, but we live in it. And if we start to over super spiritualize opportunity, like, I got an opportunity, therefore it's from God. I don't have opportunities, therefore where is God? And so it becomes very, very tricky around our identity when we start to look at this question. And for me, I remember I had all this opportunity. Things were falling in my lap. I was living in Perth, Western Australia. I got invite after invite. And then I decided, I want to go to London. I want to do this in the big wide world. I want to audition for West End, which is the Broadway of London. I get there, and for the first time in my life, I'm a small fish in a big, giant, super pond. And I am struggling for the first time with, I feel invisible. And because that season before that, I was a big fish in a small pond, I was like, God's going to do everything for me. It's just going to be easy. And we kind of think in these overarching thoughts. And so I get to London, and I do not have the spiritual backbone or depth or roots to handle that level of competition. I did not have the ability to handle the rejection. I did not have the ability to handle the fierce reality of being in a professional industry. And this wasn't even the Christian bubble. It was the world. This is Broadway of London. And I needed to wrestle with God on these deep things in such a profoundly deep way. And I went through a dark night of the soul that went for years because I did not understand where God was in that. So much of my work, Reclaim Your Creative Identity, I created as I came through that, as I developed skills, as I learned where God is in that. And I patterned my mind to the truth of what it's like to be a believer in the world as an artist and the realities of that. And then I'm called to be a steward of what God's given me, regardless of bookings or not. I began to go into creating a framework, which is what the book is, the creative brief. I say, here's the creative brief of the identity of an artist over the long term, through these seasons, through the highs, through the lows. And it's like 9 core guideposts that actually are like, starts with audacious hope, because hope is spiritual and it's fine to have hope. And then audacious action, like how do we actually take action towards the things, whether we're creating on our own project or someone else's, how are we always creating, how are we always showing up in the identity that God has given us as a creative? And when do we navigate the seasons where the gatekeepers have shut all the doors? How do I live in that space? And so that's what the book is, actually. It's come out of not the artist who's like on the red carpet. I'm not that. I'm the artist who's stayed at this for 30 plus years, who has lived those seasons that the majority of the listeners would be going through right now. So I speak to the underdog. I speak the truth because no one was speaking to them. And this group of people is still called of God. They still matter. And yet how to navigate that piece was rare and hard to find. So that's really where my work sits. I have such a heart for those creatives and such a heart for those artists.
Let's talk to that person who has experienced just a little taste of opportunity and they are suffering from imposter syndrome and they're not sure it's a syndrome. They think maybe I really am an imposter. Can you talk about that for just a moment?
Yeah, I love this. Imposter syndrome, it's actually our nervous system keeping us safe. So, what I mean, nervous system, for those who might have forgotten from school, is our fight, flight, faint, fawn, freeze reaction. It keeps us safe. So, when we're in a new environment, we have an opportunity, our body might be registering threat. And so we go into, oh, maybe I don't belong here. What it's actually doing is nervous system saying, oh, this is a new space. I'm uncomfortable here. And we start to think it's actually a safety thing, imposter syndrome. I don't want to be found out. What if I'm not good enough? What if I don't? And it's really natural and it's really normal. And a lot of people get it in one way or another. You might even get it just going to do a class. Like I think of a dancer going to a dance class. They might feel like, oh, everyone's better than me. Your nervous system's registering threat and trying to keep you safe. And when you recognize that, you can put your hand on your heart, you can pray, and you can say, Holy Spirit, I thank you that I have my own unique timeline, that you've called me to this, and that I am safe. And you do that deep breathing or that box breathing, because the reality is that we all go through that. Right now, I'm in a season of a lot of opportunity and big platforms. Keynote speaking at Metro Atlanta Film Summit. I've got doors opening wide. And you better believe I've had moments where I felt imposter syndrome, like, oh my goodness, suddenly you could call it promotion. Suddenly doors are opening. I'm an Australian in the US. I've had to start, even though I've had a career for a long time in London and Australia, when I moved here, nobody knew me. I had to start again. Social capital zero, career capital zero. Having to start again is hard when you move markets. However, you have to faithfully continue to show up to what you know you're called to do, whether you have fruit or not, because in due course you will reap a harvest if you faint not. That is the biblical principle of perseverance. So the beauty in all of this is that imposter syndrome will hit us no matter what level, wherever we are. And it's just our body trying to keep us safe. And I'm like, thank you, body. Thank you for doing what you're designed to do. And then breathe and say you're safe, though. It's okay. And I talk myself. I give myself a sweet mama pep talk, and I talk myself right out of that. If it's not evil, it's not wrong. It's just safety.
For those who are looking for a pep talk from you or need a little bit more guidance through your book to get all of the rich wisdom that you've invested in that, how can people stay connected with you and get a copy of Audacious Artistry?
Yes, head to larabiancapilcher.com/book, and there you'll find all the links from different places around the world, the US, Australia, the UK. But I also have the Healthy, Wealthy, Wise Artist podcast, where I do weekly coaching to help you keep yourself aligned as an artist and a creative through this challenging world that we live in. So there's a lot of free resources on there and courses and coaching with me one-on-one that you can get. But the book sits there as well. Right there on the homepage, you'll find it, larabiancapilcher.com. And for Americans, Lara doesn't have a U. They always put a U. It's just an American spelling. It's just Lara, like Lara Croft, which is such a great picture. larabiancapilcher.com.
I hope that all of you listening were encouraged to reclaim your creative identity. And of course, I also hope that you will come back for the next episode of Flourishment.